Well, welcome. My name's Julie McCrossin, and 10 years ago I was treated for a head and neck cancer, and it is such a pleasure to welcome someone else who's had a head and neck cancer, although a very different kind and a very different treatment. So it's welcome to Kathleen Watt. She's the author of REARRANGED, an opera singer's facial cancer, and Life Transposed, and she's joining us from near New York City. But Kathleen, where are you exactly?
I'm in upstate New York. I'm in the Western Catskills, which is a vacation spot. I happen to be on the top of a windswept hayfield, and we're snow covered at the moment. So,
wow! And I'm in the bottom of the earth in Adelaide. Literally, when I look out over my backyard to the water, the next thing is Antarctica. So we could not, and it's summer,
exactly.
So we couldn't be in more different places. Look, it's so hard to summarize what is a complex journey of treatment and recovery and reconstruction. But what was your diagnosis and an overview of the treatment you did?
My ultimate diagnosis was osteogenic sarcoma, which is bone cancer. It was in the sinus space behind my cheekbone. It was completely painless, discovered by a routine dental examination. It was not in the bone, and it was not of the bone. It was a tumor filling the space, and so it was treated at first as a chondrosarcoma, which is a cartilage tumor. But it was found to be, in the biopsies, it was found to be an osteogenic sarcoma, the bone cancer, within the tumor, which is much more aggressive. So I had surgery to excise the tumor, and I had opted for a reconstruction of autograft or live tissue grafts from my own body to reconstruct the damaged area at the time of surgery to excise the tumor. So that's what I had. And then it was followed by chemotherapy.
There's a reference in some of the descriptions of your book, Rearranged, to it being an odyssey. And it strikes me that that's a perfect analogy. I can't think of a better description of the story of your book. We can only look at snapshots. And obviously, the cover has the jigsaw of your face all over the place. And you spent many years getting to the face you have today. What is so challenging about surgery on the face, not just for you as a woman, but for you as an opera singer? You're an opera singer.
Well, for me as an opera singer, the diagnosis was cataclysmic. It's put my career plans and my very instrument at risk. It was my raison d'etre at the moment, besides all the other ways that the face and the voice and everything above the neck is part of what we present as our personal identity. In the actual event, Julie, I'll say that my issues were twofold. One is that it was just about impossible to get away from it because the pain, the activity, the sharp objects, all of that happens right in front of your eyes, or if it's deeper inside, behind the facial features in my case. So it's always right in the center of your consciousness. It's in the same place as the thought processes about it. So it's the center of identity. And there was a time when I had, because of various complications, I had wounds on my face, deep wounds that would not heal, and sent me looking for the source of the stench, if I can say so. And when I realized it was myself and I couldn't get away from it, it was one of my most shattering moments, just because I had to, for the first time, understand the division between myself and the accoutrements of self, even including my body. The other thing, okay.
No.
The second issue that I had with recovery was, I would say, cultural, as much as it was mine personally, and that is the ongoing changes to my face. I was in the decade of my 40s, and most likely this was going to be an issue of some concern anyway, along with the usual cultural definitions of virtue and beauty. But I'll give you an example. I was a few months shy of my 45th birthday when my surgeon began to discuss reconstruction of my face with me. And he said, by way of introduction, he said, I can't give you back what nature gave you. To which I replied, oh, well, that's okay. My face was going to be changing pretty soon anyway. That's how easily I conflated facial disfigurement with the normal changes to a woman's face that are brought on by age. And I would have had to submit to a number of surgeries anyway, but that's how easily and how casually I submitted to it.
What struck me was your absolute commitment to survival and your persistence to do the core role of the patient, which is to have the guts to keep fronting up.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if the extraordinary challenge of being an opera singer in New York and the discipline and commitment involved in being an opera singer may have helped you in the discipline and commitment required of a cancer patient. But where do you think you got that real commitment to hand yourself over and keep fronting?
Well, I think early on I had the feeling that there was only so much that I could control. I was surrounded by professional brainiacs, and there was precious little that I myself could control, except to learn what was my part to play and to show up, having communicated with all the other players on the stage, if you will, and trust them to do their part and be accountable for my part. And I often thought, who's it going to hurt if I don't keep showing up? And the answer is always me. And
Kathleen,
so,
how many procedures did you have in your reconstruction, just to give our listeners a chance to understand the extent of your showing up?
over 10 years, I had, at last count, it was 32 reconstructive surgeries. I counted only the ones that had general anesthesia. There were several other smaller procedures that were concurrent or subsequent to the major procedures. But it was 32 intubations, and it took about a decade. So,
what do you think were a couple of the things that assisted you to keep fronting and to get through?
Let's see.
Because I want to help others who are facing it.
Yes, of course. I'm tempted to say love and hope and optimism and things like that. But, honestly, I will say never underestimate the power of humor, wherever you can find it. I mean, major illness is boring, among other things, right? It's deadly boring, and that can be one of the greatest frustrations. In the protracted time that I was tethered to hospital land, I had many long moments to notice, and I think there's so much to notice inside and outside. The hospital world is absurd on any day of the week, for better and for worse. There's so much to notice. And I think I tried to make an art of noticing because it was pretty much all I could do. And if you can find something absurd, interesting, distracting, or funny, wherever you can find it, nothing triggers the brain's healing hormones like a good belly laugh. And now in 2023, we have science to back that up. I think more than just a distraction, it's a good bolus of endorphins and time released dopamine, all those good pleasure hormones that we're all looking for one way or another. They don't cure cancer. I'm not going to say they do, but they strengthen the immune system. They boost the mood and actually diminish pain. And
they help you to keep fronting. Can I say, for people who haven't read Rearranged, your book, that, if I may say as an Australian, that tough New York wit with which you observe what's happening to your clinicians, but also to yourself and to your partner, it's what makes the book so readable. Let me just go to this because I need to manage the time, but
sure.
Your quick reflections on the nature of the relationship with your surgeon, because trust and handing oneself over is a theme that recurs again and again, even though you have that sharp critical edge, as you observe. But is part of how you kept fronting and got through this that you in the end said you consent as best you can because you actually have no idea what's going to happen next, but you've got to trust.
Well, I think that's it, especially because anything can happen at any time. And it's not going to be possible to parse the professional caliber, the degrees of professional competency at any kind of high level, but you can always judge character. You will know if your surgeon is listening to you. You will know if he is interested in knowing you as an individual. If you can trust him, and very little else will matter as much as that in the days to come. You need to communicate and trust.
What helps you psychologically? Because it's as much a psychological battle, I think, as a physical one.
Absolutely. And that would be up to the patient to understand themselves as much as I think self-awareness is now one of the clinical prongs that medical students are drilled in now more than they were when I was in the throes of my crisis. But it's equally true on the patient side to know what you need and bring that to your consultations with your doctors. Let them know you and know that that your story is what they need to personalize the skills that they have to offer, because every case will be individual. And I, for example, needed to be included in the decisions that were being made about me. I needed to know what my choices might be, why they chose one over another, and I needed to be respected for whatever question I had. And when I chose the team that I did, it was specifically because I felt utterly diminished by another team that I had consulted with. I knew instantly that I would not be able to communicate with them. They would not support me in my own effort to mind my stewardship of my own body, for which I felt accountable. For example, I had at the beginning of my journey I had a brief moment of personal agency, which revolved around my choice of reconstruction. I was talking to two equally prestigious surgical teams who had diametrically opposed theories of best practice. And so I had to make a choice. And I made a choice to go with a more risky procedure because I trusted the team more.
I'll say to our audience, read Rearranged, because you give brilliant descriptions of very good encounters with clinicians and some fabulous vignettes of dreadful ones, let's be honest.
Sure.
Clearly this book is partly a lesbian love story. You're a lesbian, your lesbian wife is critical. We must acknowledge in this case the partner. What is your message to partners who are watching this? Husbands or wives, whatever.
I think the key is to accept the experience as a part of life, to resist the temptation to think, well, this is a terrible thing. It's a hiatus from my life. It's a chunk out of my life. And when it's over, I'll go back to being, alive and participatory. I think that's a mistake because, and in my case, I had a chance to think a lot about it. During the critical parts of my illness, before I knew that it would be so protracted, I expected to get well and go back to work, get my voice back and do everything that I needed to do to refit myself for singing again. And I think it was because it was so protracted that I got a chance to think about this quite a lot. And over a decade, it certainly did become the life that I was living. Not just a chapter of life, but it was a brand of the life that I was living at that time. So we lived it together. We made an adventure of any trip to the doctor, whether it was for CT scans or whether it was for surgery. We stopped at our favorite places on the way, and we would watch hospital TV in the wee hours. She would fetch me ice chips. It became an all-embracing relationship that nobody ever asked us about. Nobody ever asked us about it. I mean, we thought we were hiding out pretty well. We thought we had a pretty successful method for hiding her under the sheets. Nobody ever was fooled, but nobody ever cared. We were a good support team, and because of the kind of multidisciplinary surgical oncological team that was caring for me. And this was new at that time. It was revolutionary in that particular hospital, this kind of team care. And I think it was apparent to everyone how that buoyed my spirits and aided or assisted in the treatment.
As I understand it, there's strong evidence that people with head and neck cancers who don't have caring partners have a lower chance of survival. How's your identity changed? You've clearly been reconstructed. You look beautiful. It's as simple as that. You've been.
Well, I have little methods.
Well, don't we all?
I have my distracting disguises.
What about the inner self? Obviously, you haven't returned to opera, but you've really reinventing yourself as a writer. You've found new work. You've got that New York resilience, if I could say. What would you say? Where are you up to in reconstruction of your identity?
In reconstruction of my identity, I will go back to my theory that life as a sick person is still life. It's life. I think that although it changed the entire trajectory of my life forever, I mean, I couldn't do what I was going to do. I was very lucky to have a friend from the opera who offered me the chance to do some writing, and I found that it answered much of the same impulse as that motivated me to be a singer. And I'm reluctant to disown any of that illness experience because it was unexpectedly rich in many ways. And I think I would say that you ask how do I feel like myself again? I think I made a determined decision to be intentionally present during that time. And because of that, I was never not myself. I was myself on cancer.
Yeah, honestly.
I was myself before cancer, then I was myself on cancer. Now I'm myself after cancer. And I will not gainsay it. It was an experience that enriched my life. So was opera singing. And now I get to write about both of them. So,
and hence
the sum of my parts.
Look, for people who don't know about this world, Kathleen and myself with my cancer both lost voice for very extended periods of time. I was a radio broadcaster, you're an opera singer. But I just want to thank you so much for giving us some little snapshots of what's in this book, which there's so much more. Yes, it's about cancer, but it's also about your life in New York as an opera singer, your relationship and the impact on relationships. You're very frank about that.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's so much a part of why I wanted to speak with you.
So Kathleen Watt has been my guest, and the book is called Rearranged, An Opera Singer's Facial Cancer and Life Transposed, and we'll put all the details underneath this YouTube clip. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Oh, thank you. My very great pleasure. I've had fun.